Hello and welcome back to LightBody Radio, where we illuminate the path to healing through functional medicine, neuroscience, spirituality, energy medicine, and the wisdom that is already living inside you. I am Dr. Lara May, your host, functional medicine pharmacist, life coach, meditation teacher, and quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioner. And today we are going to start this Wellness Illuminated episode a little different. And I don't want to actually start today by teaching you something. I want to begin today by asking you a few questions. And not because I expect you to answer them right away, but because I hope you'll carry them with you throughout this episode and or wherever you are, whether you're driving, walking, folding laundry, sipping your morning coffee. I want you to center yourself, maybe drop into your heart space, take a nice, long, slow, deep breath, and just open yourself up to curiosity. And I want you to ask yourself a question. Why do you want to heal? Not necessarily what symptom do I want to get rid of, and not what diagnosis do I want to overcome, but why am I searching for healing? And if you woke up tomorrow completely healed, 100% happy and healthy and whole, what would be different in your life? Would you finally have the energy you've been missing? Would you stop worrying about your body? Would you maybe feel lighter, freer, more peaceful? Would you trust yourself again? Would you finally feel like yourself again? Or perhaps would you realize you've never actually met your truest self? So let me ask you another question. How did you get here? What brought you to this moment? Was it a diagnosis? Maybe it was burnout, a relationship ending, the loss of someone you love, anxiety or a health scare, or maybe it wasn't even something that dramatic at all. Maybe just one morning you woke up, looked in the mirror, and thought, man, I don't know how I got here, actually. How did I get here? So, how is your healing journey going? Really? Not the answer you give to strangers or like people that you superficially know and are having, small talk with, but really answer honestly to yourself. How is your healing journey going? How long have you been on this healing journey? I mean, for most of us, it's most of our lives, but usually we don't even realize it until something pops up in our periphery and our knowingness that draws our attention to it. So after reading every book and I'm sure listening to every podcast under the sun, trying every diet, buying every supplement, working with different practitioners, maybe the next thing will finally be the answer. And if you've been on this journey for a while, I'd like you to ask yourself one more question. What is it that you're still hoping to find? What have you not found yet? And take a moment with that, because I think the answer to that question may change the way you think about healing forever. And if any of these questions resonate with you, I want you to realize that I've been there too. And for a lot of years, I thought healing was something I was trying to achieve. I thought it was the diagnosis I was trying to fix. I thought if I found the right supplement, the right practitioner, the right peptide, the right meditation, or the right protocol, then one day I would finally become healthy, feel better, become whole, finally become enough even maybe. As someone who has spent my career immersed in medicine, I do genuinely love learning. I love science. I love human physiology and biology. I love understanding the incredible complexity yet simplicity of the human body. And functional medicine has given me the tools that have transformed lives, including my own. And I've watched people along with myself reclaim their energy, reverse chronic disease, balance their hormones, reduce inflammation, be able to sleep through the night for the first time in years. And really, it's very rewarding and extraordinary work. And I'm very grateful to be doing it. But somewhere along the way, I also realized that we had turned healing into another achievement. Like, we're so good at doing that in the Western world. It's always about achieve and strive, achieve and strive. So healing became a destination or another version of success that maybe I was even trying to earn or, again, like, strive for. But through the functional medicine, through the self-coaching, through meditation, and especially through my work with QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis technique, something definitely shifted. And healing to me has now not become something new or something different. It's actually a remembering of who I am at my core, who you are at your core. And that has really changed my outlook and perspective on healing and how I understand health as a whole, health and wellness as a whole, and how I understand and look at suffering, spirituality, and ultimately, really what it means to be human. And then I asked myself, well, what if we've been misunderstanding healing all along? What if the greatest healing isn't adding something in, adding more, but what if it's actually removing all those things that you don't need, or letting go or surrendering to all those things that don't serve you, letting go of the fear, letting go of the conditioning from society, letting go of all those old stories and traumas that don't serve you, letting go of the people pleasing, letting go of the scarcity mindset, letting go of the comparison and the judgment, of the shame, the perfectionism, layer upon layer of all of this stuff that is not you, is not me. It's not me who I am at my core, and it's not you who you are at your core. So there is this story that you've probably heard before, this analogy that David was already in the marble, the big statue of David that Michelangelo so beautifully crafted. So people asked him how he sculpted the magnificent statue of David. And his response has been translated and paraphrased in many different ways. But the heart of it, the essence of his response, is David was already in the marble. I simply removed everything that wasn't David. And I love this metaphor, especially when we think about it in terms of our health and our healing. So what if healing works the exact same way? What if your peace already exists? What if your joy already exists? What if your health is in there? It's already there. And we're actually bogging it down with this inflammation, right? So, but that's true for our love, our light, our purpose. It's not something that we need to manufacture. It's already there. It's not something we need to earn. And it's not something someone else can give us. We have to create it for ourselves and or uncover it for ourselves. Michelangelo saw David, not because he created David, but because he recognized what was already in that stone. So I wonder, what if our soul sees us the same way? Not as something broken or damaged or unfinished, or somebody or something that's waiting to become worthy, but is actually, if our soul, how do I say this, was willing to be that gentle remover of all those things that no longer belong, so that we can be uncovered to our happiest and healthiest selves. We can emerge out of the stone, that happy, healthy, and whole. So it's not about fixing a broken body. It's about removing the physiological obstacles that keep the body's innate wisdom from expressing itself. Remember that this body, this vehicle that we have and that we inhabit in this life, wants is constantly striving to be in a state of homeostasis. So everything that all those ebbs and flows, all of that swaying in the breeze feeling that we experience throughout our life and through this healing journey, that is the feeling of maybe we're coming out of homeostasis and our body brings us back. And so again, that innate wisdom is in there already. So it's not about, even if we think about like a meditation as a tool to help establish and bring back that homeostasis, it's not about emptying our minds or becoming someone more spiritual or some guru. It's about quieting the noise long enough to hear the awareness that has always been there, our inner awareness. So also too, life coaching can also, especially on the social media, there's this sort of mantra about becoming a better version of yourself. And is that really it? I mean, it could be, but I see it as questioning the thoughts that convinced us that we were never enough to begin with. And so even energy healing looks different when we shift this perspective. It's not creating something new. It's restoring coherence to what has become disconnected. And the quantum healing hypnosis technique, again, such a powerful tool and modality, because through this, I watch people connect with their inner wisdom, with that healing wisdom that they already have within them. And I've seen miraculous, instantaneous healings. And it was all done by just the person on the sofa or on the bed in the hypnosis. Them. It wasn't me, because all I did was guide them into that state to be open to receive and hear their higher self, that inner wisdom. It was finally allowing themselves to recognize that peace that has always lived within inside of them. So there are different modalities, there are different doorways, but the destination is the same. It's the same homecoming. But this also raises another question. If our wholeness has always been there, if our bodies, our minds, and our souls are carrying this wisdom and have always carried this wisdom, then how and why do we forget? And I think that answer to that question shifts us again. And that's sort of where we're going to go into next. Like, why do we forget? If healing is the remembering, then the obvious question becomes, why did we forget in the first place? And we're constantly questioning. And I think a lot of it, and that's healthy and that's normal and that's great. And if you stop questioning, I think that's something to actually be worried about. But, as children, our brains are incredibly adaptive, and they're constantly asking questions like, am I safe? Am I loved? Do I belong? What do I need to do, be, or show up as to be accepted? And our nervous system pays attention to every interaction, every environment, every experience. And long before we can consciously explain what's happening, our brain has already gathered the evidence about the world and is starting to shape our perceptions and how we perceive reality and how we react to this reality that we're perceiving. So it begins to create protective strategies. So some of us learn to become the high achiever or the caretaker, the perfectionist, or even invisible. Some of us learn to be fiercely independent because asking for help actually felt unsafe. Others of us learn to stay small so that we don't become targets of abuse or bullying. And these aren't the personality traits we were born with. These are things that we learned to survive. And so again, it was just our brain trying to adapt for survival. Our nervous system isn't trying to limit us, it's trying to protect us. And that's a really important distinction and something to keep in mind. And the problem is that what protects us at 5 years old often does become the thing that limits us when we're 45 years old. And so we really have to consciously and with intention deprogram ourselves at some point, because even after the danger is gone, our brain, since it's such a great pattern former, wants to just keep repeating those patterns. And so let's dive into the biology of remembering. What would that look like in our body? And so, again, you know me, I love bringing the functional medicine and the neuroscience into these conversations. So, when we're living in chronic stress, unresolved trauma, inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, blood sugar instabilities, poor sleep, hormone imbalance, our brain shifts into survival mode. The amygdala, which is the brain's alarm system, becomes more active. The stress hormones like cortisol remain constantly elevated. And especially if you've listened to several of these episodes, you know what that does to your body. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for reflection, creativity, long-term planning, and thoughtful decision-making, becomes less efficient. And so, in other words, when the body doesn't feel safe, the mind has a much harder time accessing that flow state, accessing the healing state, accessing the homeostasis. It's too busy trying to survive and protect. And this is one of the reasons that I love how functional medicine can come in here, because people often, they want a lab value to fixate on a number and fix that number. And even in Western medicine, we say treat the patient, not the number. And this is something I teach my students all the time. Your number, yes, it can be meaningful, but again, and we've talked about this before, all lab values have a reference range, but that doesn't mean that that's the optimal functioning value or range for that patient. So you have to take into context symptoms and patient presentation with the numbers that you're looking at. And honestly, like even if a client brings me like one set of lab values, most of the time I ask for previous results so I can see trends, because trends matter too. So let's just take one example, an easy low hanging fruit example. When we support blood sugar, when we get that blood sugar within that optimal range, we reduce inflammation, we restore nutrient assimilation, we help balance hormones, we get to improve our sleep, we support the gut. And that's not forcing the body to heal. That's what the body is doing naturally. And when we bring that blood sugar back into harmonious balance, we're removing another obstacle that has kept the nervous system locked in that survival mode. And again, the body already knows what health looks like and feels like and is. And so we just need to give it that space to be able to do that for us. So in my evaluation of this question, what is healing and why don't we heal? To me, healing is the process of uncovering and remembering. And so this is why I no longer really see healing as self-improvement per se. Self-improvement assumes that the original version of you was somehow inadequate or broken or, dysfunctional. But healing itself tells a different story. Healing says your essence was never lost. It was simply covered up or hidden. Maybe it was covered by fear, expectations, old identities, survival. But little by little, every healthy meal, every honest conversation, every forgiveness practice, every meditation, every courageous decision that you make, every boundary that you set, every moment of choosing the thing that feels good for yourself is another chip of that marble falling away, until one day you see that person, you that was there all along, looking back at you in the mirror, happy, healthy, whole, free. So if healing is remembering, then how do we begin? And I don't think that it's really necessarily one dramatic moment. For some people it can be, but there are certainly profound experiences that can change the trajectory of life in an instant. But I mean, it can be a QHHT session. It can be a deep meditation. But I've also seen it in people who finally understand that the root cause of their illness after years and years of searching, that has been within their power to heal and fix this whole time. And so sometimes there is this moment where everything shifts, but a lot of times too, remembering it happens quietly in the ordinary moments. The moment you pause before saying yes, when your heart is really saying no, that moment you choose rest instead of pushing through exhaustion, the moment you stop apologizing for taking up space, the moment you question a thought that you've believed for 20 years, and that moment that you actually decide to forgive yourself, the moment you realize that your body isn't the enemy, and the moment you stop trying to earn love and simply allow yourself to receive it, be the receiver. And these moments oftentimes seem small and insignificant, but they are sacred and they are powerful. And this is where the monumental shifts happen, because every one of them actually is part of an act of remembering. So healing really is a daily choice. And this is why I entitled this episode, Healing is a Choice, but not the one you expect. When most people hear that phrase, they think I'm talking about, again, choosing the right diet, supplement, meditation practitioner, blah, 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 all those things, whatever. But really, the deepest choice and the big choices are, will I continue to live from a place of fear, or will I begin to live from a place of truth? And every day, often multiple times a day, we are presented with that option. I mean, and this is, if you pick up your phone and immediately turn on your news app, I think this is a big one, because that's actually what the news is asking you to do. Believe in the fear, believe in all of the things that all these people are making up in the world and all this drama and destruction that's being made up, or believe in the truth of love, that love exists, that love prevails, that love is actually the driving force of the universe. So, will you remember yourself? Will you choose your health, your well-being? Will you be selfish, but in the healthiest way possible? In that way that will allow your body to find that homeostasis. So healing isn't just one decision. It's thousands of tiny decisions that bring us back home, that bring us back to ourselves. And this requires radical responsibility, but without the self-blame and self-judgment. So this is important. And so sometimes when people hear the phrase healing is a choice, they actually hear something very different. They hear, well, so you're saying this is my fault? And no, I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying step into your own power and your responsibility and ask yourself, what is mine to do now? What can I do now for myself? Where have I been giving my power away? Where am I giving my power away now? Am I blaming someone else for what's happening in my life? You didn't choose every experience that shaped you. You didn't choose every trauma or every loss. You didn't even choose your genetics. You didn't even choose the environment you were raised in. But today, you can choose how you respond. You can choose curiosity or love and compassion instead of judgment, compassion instead of criticism, presence and patience instead of perfectionism. And little by little, those choices begin to change your life and your biology. Because remember this inextricable link between the two, and the role of epigenetics, that we really can't separate it. We know from neuroscience that the brain is capable of neuroplasticity throughout our entire lives. We know that habits reshape our neural pathways. We know that thoughts influence our stress physiology. We know that emotional regulation changes our autonomic nervous system function. Science tells us that change is possible, and it is also dramatically impactful on our biology. Spirituality reminds us why it matters. And together, they offer the recipe and the formula for healing. So, I would like to challenge you to reclaim your power, reclaim your life, take control. It's yours. Stop giving your power away to other people, to institutions, to thought forms that aren't true, to the news, to political parties, to even maybe people you're in relationship with. Maybe you're giving your power away to a spouse or to a parent. Really sit down and evaluate, where is your power going? Because if you're giving your power away to other people, you don't have that power available to help yourself heal. So that inner wisdom cannot be outsourced. It is yours, it's within you. And there is a difference between information gathering and cultivating that inner knowing and that inner self trust. And so it's important that we cultivate that inner self trust and we really get to know that inner voice. What does it feel and sound like when I hear a yes? What does a no feel and sound like? What do I do to respond to either a yes or a no? Do I go down the path in conjunction with whatever that is? Meaning, if it's a yes, do I take that path, that step? Or even if I hear a yes, do I talk myself out of it and tell myself no or tell someone else no? And then we wonder why we have challenges in our lives. So, what is the practice of remembering? What does it actually look like? It can look like placing your hand over your heart before the day begins and asking, what do I need today? I know I'm going to be a lot of things to a lot of different people, but what do I need for me to show up so that I can serve other people? What does loving your body look like? What does choosing to love your body look like? What does being willing to release the self punishment? Stop beating up on yourself. Let that shit go. What does presence over perfection look like for you? What does coming home look like? Coming home to your true self, coming home to your health and your wellness. And it's not a destination and it's never finished. You're constantly creating it. And that's great because that means there's always the potential to create something new and different the next day. If you don't like how it went today, then you have the opportunity to change it. You have the choice, the opportunity, the power to choose love over fear, to choose trust over control. And so, as I reflect on my own healing journey and ask myself these questions as well, it's also interesting to me as I work with other people and watch them evolve and change and or sometimes resist that change, which is also very interesting to me. That's sort of what triggered the inspiration for this episode today. We are fully human and fully divine all at the same time. And it doesn't mean that we never struggle. Like, healing and being human doesn't mean that we never struggle and we never grieve. We do. Those are part of being human. Being human is a 50-50 soul choice, meaning half the time we're going to feel great and half the time we're going to feel like crap. But how we navigate that ebb and flow and how we can strive to be in that state of great more often than not. That's the key. So, just today, I want to invite you to think about, maybe you don't need another protocol. Maybe you don't need another self improvement project. Maybe you don't need to become a better version of yourself. Maybe what you simply need is a moment of stillness, a deep breath, a hand on your heart, and an honest question and an openness to hear, receive, and act on that answer. So I want to leave you with a question. What have you believed that made you forget who you truly are? You don't have to rush to answer it. You can actually let it bounce around in your head maybe for the rest of the day. Maybe later right before bed, maybe you take some time to journal on it. But every time you think about it, notice how things begin to shift. Just little things, and they begin to soften. And maybe there's space that's created. And maybe you are more willing to open yourself up for grace and curiosity and compassion. And so oftentimes people ask me, well, what is the most powerful healing modality? And I have to say, it's not just one thing. You cannot distill it down to just one thing. Just like you can't distill, there's no one magic bullet, no one magic pill to create health. There is no one magic modality either. However, I will say that whatever you choose, that is what the best healing modality is for you. So I can't even answer that question for you. For me, QHHT is one of the most healing, powerful modalities I've ever worked with. And that's why I do it, because I've consistently see the dramatic changes that it creates for people. But really, healing is a choice. You have to choose it. Even if you go to a practitioner that gives you a protocol, if you choose not to do the protocol, then you're choosing not to participate in that modality of creating your health. And that's fine, but just be honest with yourself about it. It's not up to the practitioner to heal you. It's up to you to heal you. You are your own most powerful healer, not a practitioner. Practitioners are just guides. They're guides, they're teachers. I'm just a guide, I'm just a teacher. You're the one that does the healing for you. So these are choices to stop abandoning yourself, to stop believing every fearful thought that runs through your head. The choice is to stop outsourcing and giving away your power and trust the wisdom that already lives inside you. Trust that little inner voice. Invite it in and get to talking to it more often so that you recognize it more and that you, again, trust it more and you know it better. The choice is to remember the peace underneath all that noise, to remember the love that overrides all the fear, to remember the wholeness, to remember the light over the darkness. So give yourself that opportunity to think about, maybe life isn't asking you to become someone new. Maybe it's actually inviting you to remember who you've always been. Your body remembers whole health and wellness. Let it do that for you. Your mind remembers truth with a capital T, and your soul remembers love. And when all of those things come together, that's what we call healing. So thank you for being with me today. I hope this conversation maybe instigated you or inspired you to shift your thoughts about some things and maybe question some things and ask yourself some good questions. And so if this resonated with you, then please share it with someone else you think it might resonate with. And until next time, take good care of your body, be gentle with your mind, and trust that the light has always lived within your soul and always will, especially if you let it. Catch you in the next episode.